There were three friends who loved watching horror movies. One day, one of the guys received a parcel in the mail. There were no stamps on the mysterious package and no name or address was written on the front. The guy had no idea who it was from. When he opened the parcel, he found a DVD inside. There was no cover on the case and no title on the disc. He thought his friends might be playing a joke on him, so he took the DVD and went out to meet the other guys. When he arrived at their house, he asked them about the mysterious DVD, but they said they had nothing to do with it. They invited him inside to watch it and see what was on it. When they sat down on the sofa and pressed play on the DVD player, they were surprised at what they saw on the screen. There was a creepy clown standing in a room. There was a bed on his left and a closet on his right. He was holding two red balloons and staring into the camera. Then, some weird music started playing and the clown began dancing and jumping around. He was jerking and shaking his body all around the room. All the while, his clown face was fixed in a wide, menacing grin. He looked insane and his behavior was bizarre. Two of the friends thought it was hilarious and started laughing out loud. After a while, they noticed that their third friend was very quiet. When they turned to look at him, they could see that his face was white as a sheet and his eyes were wide in terror. "What's the matter with you?" they asked. "Why aren't you laughing?" The guy replied in a well voice, "That's my bedroom." My grandfather was a drunk and my father was too, but I never touched a drop. There's a reason for that. When I was young, times were hard and I grew up poor. My grandfather and my father never did an honest day's work in their life. Granddad wasn't good for much, but he played the clarinet like an artist. He taught my father how to play the accordion. Every Christmas, they would gather a group of their friends and go from door to door, playing Christmas music, singing Christmas carols, and begging for money. Afterwards, they would all go down to the pub and spend it on alcohol. One Christmas Eve, they brought me with them. I was too young to play an instrument, so they handed me a triangle and told me to strike it every now and then. The night was dark, the snow was falling, and a cold December wind cut through us like a knife. We kept our heads down and trudged through the snow and the sleet. Eventually, my grandfather stopped and said, "This looks like as good a place as any." We were outside a big mansion, decorated with Christmas lights. My grandfather knocked on the front door and we began to play some old Christmas carols. The door of the house swung open, and in the dim light, I saw a young woman standing there. She was holding a tray of glasses in her hands. With a smile, she picked up a glass and held it out, inviting one of the men to drink. My grandfather rubbed his hands together with glee and took the glass. Just then, I looked up and, in the window above, I saw a face peering out of the shadows, a face that was hideous beyond words. I looked back at the woman in the doorway and her face was hideous too. Before I could stop him, my grandfather put the glass to his lips and knocked it back with one big gulp. "Oh, dear," said the woman, in an eerie childish voice, "you've drunk blood, sir." With that, the door slammed shut. My grandfather stumbled backwards, and the glass fell from his hands. It shattered with a deafening crash and he collapsed in the snow. I don't remember much after that. All I recall is waking up in the light of dawn and finding myself lying in the snow. The other men were lying all around me, just waking up themselves. My father got to his feet and rubbed his head. The woman had disappeared and the house was boarded up and abandoned. All that was left was a dark red stain in the show where the glass had broken. My grandfather lay there in the snow beside it, his face all purple and swollen. He was as dead as a doornail. We hurried home that morning and called the police. They picked up my grandfather's body and brought it to the mortuary. My father told them what had happened, but they didn't believe a word of his tale. They said the house had been vacant for over 100 years. After that night, my father was never the same man again. He never let another drop of alcohol touch his lips and made sure I did the same. Because of my job, I was transferred to another part of the country. My company paid for a rental home where my family and I were going to live temporarily. It was a big house located on a mountainside. The only problem was that it was quite old and dilapidated. We had been living there for about a month when my daughter found something strange in the garden. It was a small box. When she showed it to me, I had a very ominous feeling about it. I took it away from her immediately and told her I was going to dispose of it. If only I had just thrown the wretched thing away, none of this would ever have happened. For some reason I can't explain, I decided to burn the box. A few days later, something disastrous occurred. One of my close friends was in a car accident. The vehicle suddenly burst into flames. My poor friend was trapped in the wreckage and burned alive. She was dead before the firemen arrived on the scene. A short time after that, another friend of mine had a tragic mishap. He was building a bonfire outside his home when he accidentally set his clothes on fire. He suffered severe burns on the right side of his face and his right arm. I went to visit my friend when he was recovering in the hospital, and he told me exactly what had occurred. He said that, a few days before the accident happened, he had a strange dream that his body was on fire. Although I have never believed in superstitions, I had an eerie feeling that it had something to do with the box my daughter found. I immediately went home and searched the garden, looking for the hole where I had burned the box. I found it, and when I picked it up, a terrible feeling of coldness washed over my entire body. Inside the charred box, there were 3 dolls, traditional Japanese dolls, wearing kimonos. One was burned to a crisp, the second was only scorched on one side, and the third was untouched by the flames. When I picked up the doll that had been half burned, the kimono fell away in tatters. That's when I saw the back of the doll. I stared in horror. The name of my friend was carved into the doll's back. There, the name of my other friend, the one who died, was carved on the back of the doll that was completely burned. The doll that was left untouched had my name carved into it. A chill ran down my spine, and I was left wondering who would do such a thing. Who could have left the dolls in my garden? I don't have any enemies. There was no reason for anyone to have a grudge against me. I couldn't make sense of it. I took my wife and daughter and moved out of the house immediately. We couldn't just throw away the dolls, so we left them in a Buddhist temple. Even now, the words of the Buddhist monk who accepted them are still trapped in my mind. I tried to perform a blessing on these dolls to remove the curse, he said. But it is not possible to bless them. The grudge which is stuck to these dolls is not human in origin.